Okay, this is basic math exponents, exercise 7. We'll do some questions from part A and part B. And so part A, I'm going to do question 5. And that question is y cubed, and that's being multiplied by y to the 4th. That might be brackets around that. And then divided by y to the 5th. And so when I have the base, which is the y, that's the base, and then the exponent is the number. When the bases are the same, you can sort of add the exponent. So I can add this 3 and the 4, and so then over here I would, this equals y to the 7 divided by y to the 5th. And what that really means is that there's literally 7 y's here, and then down here there's 5 of them. And whatever the y is, it could be a 2 or a 10 or a 100 or a -6, whatever the y is, if I take that y, let's say it's a -6, and then this y is also going to be a -6. And so -6 divided by -6 is 1. And so really these sort of become the number 1, or some people say they cancel off, but they're not. They really just divide into the number 1, and 1 times anything is just itself. So all of these are sort of just turning into 1. And so all I'm really left with is 1 times this, y. I have 2 y's left over basically. So in the end, I'm sort of left with this y squared. And that's the answer for that one. So let's try part B, number 2. Okay, so part B, number 2, and that question looks like it's a -1/2, and that's going to be cubed. And so basically that's just a -1/2 times a -1/2 times a -1/2, all multiplied together. And a negative number times a negative number times a negative number. I know my answer is going to be negative. I know that, but I can figure it out anyway. So I'm just multiplying the numerators. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And then I'm multiplying the denominators. 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. And that's it. A -8 is the answer. And then let's try number 5 with negative exponents. Sometimes negative exponents are a little tricky. 6 to the -3. That's more of a symbol than anything. And I know that's not the right question, but I'm just going to show you this one first. So if I had 6 to the -3 there for the exponent, what that really looks like is 1/6 cubed. And so then that would literally be 1/, 6 times 6 times 6, and then I could figure out what that is. But our question is actually this one. That's a half being multiplied by the -3, and that does make it a little bit tricky. And so I should probably just start this on. So the half multiplied by the -3, it looks kind of weird because it's the same as the 6. It's 1/, and then it's the half cubed. And so that literally looks like 1/2 times a half times a half. And it might be easier to look at it this way: 1 divided by, or it's the same as doing 1, make it look like a fraction, but 1 divided by, and then it's a half cubed. So that's a half times a half times a half, which equals 1 divided by, and so that's 1 times 1 times 1 in the numerator, and 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So that's what that is, 1 divided by an 8th. And so now I'm really sort of dividing fractions. And so whenever I divide fractions, I actually need to multiply by the reciprocal. And so that's just 8 times 1 is 8. And I still have a 1 over here, but 8 divided by 1 is still just 8. And that's my final answer.